or to accept, dial 5 now. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To decline this call,
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
It's kind of rough. I'm really behind the curve on a lot of things that are coming in, and but I'm doing good health wise, and I'm very happy. And it's always good to hear your voice.
Well, that's good. Dennis tested the math system a little bit, and it worked. He's also they found the platinum out there, and it's kind of interesting to note that platinum is next to gold on the periodic table, and I think regular sluice box, regular gold equipment should process that dirt.
Is that something Dennis is pursuing too?
Yeah, well, our little friend Jeremiah there, his brother, claimed 20 acres out there, and he's heading that way too.
Wow.
In the next 10 days, so I'm trying to get something done. I got your brief for DeMaya, and that was pretty much arguing the jurisdiction issue using DeMaya, which I thought was extremely unique. I don't know if they will go for that because they just don't want to honor the jurisdictional argument at all.
Yeah, I understand. That particular vagueness brief that I sent you, I've also had feedback on that it may not hold muster, but it's just a sample, so it is what it is. But as I collect more and more, I expect to get more as time goes on. I'll forward you those as well.
Well, I had a real hard time here getting a typewriter. They don't have any, so I finally bought one from an inmate. And then now there's no ribbons. I found 4 ribbons.
Wow.
I had to go buy those. The prison's not selling any ribbons, you see.
That's terrible.
So right now, tomorrow morning, I have ribbons and I have a typewriter. And I was reading this DeMaya brief, and then I pulled out the brief that was done by Dennis Reardon for the structuring a transaction to avoid reporting. That's the crime they accused that congressman of doing, that sent money to his girlfriend down in South America.
Okay.
And when I read Reardon's brief, it said, you can't charge the man with this, it's too vague. And that jumped off the page at me, and I got hold of Bobby, and I said, look at this, Bobby. Reardon argued that this structuring a transaction is too vague. His eyes got big, and he says, my God, he says, DeMaya wipes out your first conviction.
No, that'd be great. That'd be so good news.
So what we can do is wipe out the first conviction because it's vague. They gave me 10 years for taking money out of my own bank account, and there's no crime.
That's structuring, right? That's something called structuring?
Right, but the law says only the bank teller can be charged. If a bank teller doesn't, give notice to the Internal Revenue, and then on top of that, there's an exemption for payroll. It says any money taken out for payroll doesn't have to be, reported.
Yeah.
Well, A, I'm not a bank teller, and B, you see,
this call is from a federal prison.
The office manager, Jerry Gray, withdrew the money for her cash box for payroll. So it was actually exempt from reporting. And in lieu of all that, they gave me 10 years, knowing that I, A, didn't withdraw the money, B, it was exempt, and C, it was for a bank teller. They gave me 10 years.
That's insanity. Dennis Hastert also got charged with structuring. That may be who you were referring to. There's also a famous Baptist preacher in Florida called Dr. Dino. His name is Kent Hovind. He spent 9 years in prison because of structuring, and it's withdrawing your own money from your own bank to pay your own bills. It's insanity that you went to prison for that. It's the craziest thing in the world.
Well, they didn't really have a case, and that's why they brought in the Swisher guy.
Yeah. Did you actually get convicted of structuring? Did you actually spent 10 years in prison because of structure? Yeah. Insanity, David. Insanity. Hey, Officer Jack McLam in 2004 had an article about you in Aid and Abet newsletter, and Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Somebody sent me a copy of that, and a lot of the men in that same newsletter, not just you, but a lot, about 5 or 6 others, are still in prison today. It's absolutely terrible.
He was my friend. I think he was originally one of the Bo Gritz supporters. You know,
Yeah.
He went up there to Kamiah because Bo Gritz had a subdivision called Almost Heaven up there.
Yes.
And my friend that invited me up was one of the Bo Gritz followers. He says, "Oh, it's a good place to be." Anyway, his name was, if you're recording this, his name was Tim Schofield.
Yep.
And Tim Schofield's uncle is the assessor, the county assessor in Las Vegas. Which is interesting.
All right.
And Tim Schofield never showed up at the trial because he drove to the railroad tracks, which are like, you know, you go out by Blue Diamond Road. I guess it's west of, in other words, it's parallel to the strip, but you go towards north. I guess it would be north, but anyway, I get confused because the streets in Vegas aren't really lined up correctly. But anyway, the point is, he went out to where the railroad tracks were. He put a 45 in his mouth and he pulled the trigger.
Why did he do that?
I don't know.
Huh. Terrible.
I know the feds were trying to get him to lie against me. That might have been part of it. A very good constitutional person. So there was actually 2 different people that committed suicide, supposedly. There was him, and then there was a Kevin Hagen guy, who was a highway patrolman, retired.
Yep. Wow.
So because of your donation, we're broke even, and we got all these supplies, and we're trying to move forward as fast as we can. I'm going to be cranking out a whole bunch of Demiah briefs. Now, you know, Bob here, he's not a Christian, and he's kind of a pain, but he has spent like 20 or 30 years filing endless briefs.
Yeah.
And he wins. He has an 80% win rate when he files briefs.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, he's an expert in the matrix. You know, he's plugged in.
Okay.
And I've already paid him about over $3,000. We're going on $4,000 right now over the last 8 or 9 months. It's 50 here, 50 there. It adds up, and me screaming, and I need money, you know. But anyway, he's going to have my new 2241. I'm doing the typing, by the way. We've teamed up, okay? I do 110 words a minute. He's dictating it. I'm typing it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We're trying to have everything. We're trying to have the 2255. It's called a second and successive. We're going to have that done hopefully Thursday or Friday. Then a few days after that, we're going to amend the 2241 and add Demiah to that. But when we do the 2255, we're going to add the structuring argument with Demiah. And as fast as I can get all this stuff copied, I got a package ready for you now. I've got 100 pages, all Swisher's transcripts that I'm going to mail you in the next few days.
Okay.
So now Bob he's willing to do briefs for anybody you want done. We think we can crank out one every other day once we get the mill up and running and me typing full time. He's charging people like $200 to do their brief.
Okay.
I mean, most people will pay. That's not that much money.
I'll share that if that comes up and handy for anybody. You're aware that there's a timeline on this, right? It has to be done by April of next year, I believe. That's what I was told anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Right, but I'm just saying. I did briefs in the past, and I just don't think we can win because I keep telling you we're in the matrix, and you didn't understand what I was trying to say. What I'm trying to say is Bob does briefs that actually win, even if they're not really right. In other words, the whole government's not really correct. They're a bunch of loony bins. The only reason they got anything going is because they got guns and they're bullies.
Right.
You know.
Right. So okay.
Bob knows how to write a brief. Bob knows how to write a brief where they'll let it win. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's what he's valuable for.
Well, how can you show a piece of paper, I don't care what you call it, 2241, 2251, legal motion, You're going to show a piece of paper to a bunch of devils, Satan worshipers, and they're going to read this piece of paper and they're going to say, "Oh, we got to let David go because the words on this paper are so important." I mean, I hope it works, man. I'm praying.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but
I hope you're right.
What I'm trying to explain to you is there's certain arguments they just don't want to hear. Now, right now, Demaya's hot, and they're actually 4 people actually got released from prison. They ruled fast. Now, when you file a 2255, they have to answer by statute law in 30 days.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be literally hundreds of thousands of people, maybe 70, 80,000 people that are going to get some relief from Demaya. It's going to make a major dent in this. And so they just can't keep stalling because there's a whole bunch of them coming their way.
Right.
And, I want my direct appeal, but I'm just telling you from what I've seen. I've heard my father say there's no hope. We got to do this and that, and he runs off chasing his windmills with his big windmill sword. But I've seen people win and win and win only when they make the argument that these people want to hear. You have to literally crawl into the matrix, make the matrix argument that they want to hear, then you can win. Then we can maybe get out of Dodge. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hope so.
But
I hope so.
I wrote that brief for the Sagebrush Rebellion, and that's real law. They don't own Yellowstone National.
Yeah.
They don't own Yellowstone National Park. They got no right to it. But they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear the jurisdictional argument. Okay?
Yep. You're right.
Remember, I was trained to do legal briefs by George Graziadei.
Right. This is a lawyer for the mafia, so he must be good.
He was a mob attorney that used to, if you're recording this, he used to eat Sunday dinner at Al Capone's house.
Yep.
His father was Al Capone's enforcer. George Graziadei had a picture on his wall of Al Capone. I'm talking a hand-painted original. I said to George, I says, "Who's that in the picture?" "Uncle Al," he says. I says, "Who's that in the other picture?" He says, "Al, my father." I said, "Well, who's Uncle Al?" He grinned and he said, "Capone." Really?
Wow.
I said, "Can I have that picture? I'd like to have that picture. That figure's worth $1 million,
Yeah.
He says, "What would you do with it?" Well, first off, Al Capone was a political prisoner because they put him in prison based on not paying his taxes, and the IRS is a fraud. It's a scam.
Yeah.
He grinned when I said that, And then he says, "What would you do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to borrow money on it. I'm going to build an Italian restaurant, and I'm going to call it Capone's, okay? And I'm going to put it there on the Strip." And he smiled, and he said, "You can have the picture."
Wow. Did he give it to you?
Georgie,
Did he give it to you?
Well, I went to prison, so no.
Oh, okay, all right.
And he died a couple of years back, But he never tried to get on the radio and get any. He's like you, You don't put your name on your card. You're just trying to help prisoners. George didn't go out like what's his name? That guy that claims he's a mob attorney, Oscar Goodman. He didn't run around doing talk shows and trying to be a big shot. No, George didn't want any publicity. He's the real guy,
Yeah.
He was Spilacio's attorney. The guy that would stab people with the eyes with the ink pen and all that crap. He was the real mob attorney.
This call is from a federal prison.
I told Mitchell I was working for George Graziadei, and he went, "Mob."
Oh my goodness.
Mitchell was, yeah. But, I was warned when I went to Vegas. Oh, watch out for those Italians. They're murderous. They're Costa Nostra, and all this crap, And the only people that bothered me were Mormons.
or the corporate United States government, one of the two.
1 minute. I really got along really good with those supposed mob people. They were honorable.
Hey, I just read a 21-page affidavit from a prisoner who's been in prison 35 years, not you, and he said that every single time he got a typewriter and stuff to make legal progress, they would throw his typewriter down the stairs. Don't let them throw your typewriter down the stairs if you can help it.
Well, you understand why I'm trying to work with B here.
Yes, I understand.
I know he's got problems, and I'm frustrated, but
yeah, well,
honesty is all I got, really.
I agree with you.
Dennis has his other prisoner friend helping me in here, too, keeping things cool here.
I'm hoping Demaya will get you out.
His name is Justin.
Yep. I'm hoping Demaya will get you out.
I think it's going to get rid of 10 and it's going to unstack 3 and it's time served.
Praise God.
I'm hoping to finish between now and Friday. I will get it in the mail to you, and the minute it's done, I will type it on the computer so you get it as fast as possible.
All right, that's David Hinkson. Been in prison for a long, long time and doesn't need to be in prison.